I speak for all of us when I say that we love our jobs. It's a great job. We get to interact with a lot of different people. It's kind of seeing all the different parts of the college. So, and all of us transitioned from being full-time faculty members. So I'm going to take just a couple minutes to introduce the fine panel to you. So, without further ado, I am Amy Anguiano. I'm going to stay here. Sorry. And Dean of Liberal Arts and Social Science at Virginia Western Community College, and I was a full-time communications professor teaching public speaking. And this is Patrick Tompkins, and he is the Dean of Communications, Humanities, and Social Sciences, and he was a professor of English. And next is Toni Johnson. She is the interim dean of occupational technical programs at Paul D. Camp Community College, and she taught early childhood. Yes. And next is Johanna Weiss, and she is dean of mathematics, natural and health sciences at John Tyler Community College. So, so that is who we are. Last chance, if you weren't here to learn about transitioning to a dean, this is your chance to leave, right? Yes.
You mentioned what people taught. You didn't mention Johanna Weiss.
Biology.
Oh, I'm sorry, biology.
Okay, so Johanna Weiss taught biology. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, sorry. And we are going to ask, because of the live streaming, that if you do have questions that you want us to answer, if we could hold those to the end, we'll have a little time at the end so that we can give you a microphone, because we want the people who are streaming to be able to hear you. Great. So I'm going to start, and I am going to, and so we're not going to just explain our journeys here. We are really going to talk about what a dean does, what the knowledge and skills are that you need in order to be a dean, how you can lead while you are in a faculty role or in your current role, and then some nuts and bolts about actually how to apply and get the job. So that's the progression that we're going to go through. So first of all, I'm going to talk to you about what does a dean do. I'm sure you've talked to your dean. I'm sure if you are a dean, you know what you do, but I'm sure you've talked to your dean and gone sometimes, where is she or where is he and what do they do and what goes on in all those meetings, right? So I can't tell you because, then I'd have to kill you, right? But there are some things that a dean does that you would have to do if you were selected as the candidate to be a dean. So we will talk about those things. And I would like for you to know that right off the bat, you're probably more prepared than you think. A lot of things that you are doing in the classroom right now translate to what we're doing, what a dean does. So the skills that you have that are making you an effective faculty member are going to transition you well into administration. So student grievances can get a little tricky. So, however, we have dealt with student requests and student complaints as a faculty member all along, so that should not come as a surprise or as something that you're not familiar with. Also, communication is the key. I think that you'll find throughout all of these slides that it is how you communicate that is going to help you be the most effective. So you will have to communicate effectively with faculty, staff, and students, and of course your vice president and all the other deans and colleagues at your school. And of course communicate effectively across campuses as well, which is a lot of fun. Also, we provide service to the college, completing your committee assignments, collaborating with colleagues, upholding college policy, representing the college, and participating in professional development. Also, there's budget things that kind of go into that policy part, that is important too. And the most important part of that certainly is keeping your eye on the needs of the students in your area and needs of the faculty in your area, and communicating that to your people and then communicating that back to the people who are making the decisions. So you really need to be an advocate for your faculty members. So there are a lot of similarities in what you're doing right now that will transition you successfully into being a great dean. You will need to communicate effectively. You will need to be a problem solver, right? You will need to be professional. You will need to be ethical. You will need to be reliable, flexible, and fair. And as you work on projects, you will find that they are a lot like the things that you like about being a faculty member. The projects are cyclical. They're well defined, so you will know what you have to do and when it's due. And so they're really not that much different than creating a new course or developing a new course, and it's not that much different from working on a thesis or something like that. But the projects also can be global, so you can make a difference not only just in your classroom with your students, but in your school and in your college and in your state, and we go on and on and on as we make a difference for our students. So it does feel to me like I am making a difference with students. I may not be one-on-one in the classroom with them, but I feel like I am making that difference. And student success is our one goal, right? So without further ado, Patrick will come and talk to you in more detail about the knowledge and skills that you might need in order to be an effective dean.
Thank you, Amy. That was a wonderful start for us. And so I'm going to share with you my joke about being a dean, and that is it's called going over to the dark side. And I never really understood that because I had very good deans. And the leadership that I worked with, they all seemed to be goodness and light. So when I got the job, I found out why they call it going over to the dark side, because you go into work when it's dark and you go home when it's dark. And I am not kidding. So let's talk a little bit about knowledge and experience. And I'll let that quote marinate for a moment. So I'm going to start with knowledge. You know, I'm not sure if there are any areas of knowledge that are really essential. Deans typically come up through the faculty ranks, but not always. Sometimes they come from another area of the college, particularly at small colleges where the pool of talent is limited and people kind of are cross-trained. But in general, more is more better in terms of knowledge. Very important, too, to know what you don't know and not to be afraid of that. To say, you know, well, gee, you're talking about lab lecture credits. I don't know anything about that. How does that happen? And to pursue that knowledge. You'll need to know some content. Oh, it looks like a, excuse me. Did I skip a slide? I did. So it's important to know your context and start with your college. How many FTEs do you have? How many students do you serve? What are your programs? How many students do you graduate? What's your annual budget? Know your service region. What counties do you serve? What cities do you serve? What are the major industries? What's the unemployment rate? Get to know your service region. Know the VCCS and your institution's connection to it and the major VCCS initiatives. Understand that we're part of a state council of higher education in Virginia, and so we're connected to the four-year institutions as well. And understand the national context and what are those conversations and what are those trends. Throughout it all, you want to be thinking about the mission, the vision, the strategic plan, looking at those carefully and figuring out how that fits in with your institution. In terms of content and procedures, curriculum is very, very important, and as a faculty member, you get to know that intimately, and so get to know your curriculum, become an expert in your department, even the courses that you don't teach, do that first. A lot of us don't know about policies and procedures until we go into administration, and my word, there's a policy on that? What is that procedure? A great place to start for some weekend reading is the VCCS policy manual. People like me actually do find it interesting. I recommend sections 3, 5, and 6. 3 is HR, 5 is educational programs, and 6 is student development. And again, you'll read and you'll say, wow, I didn't know that was a policy. And often you'll say, oh, we're not compliant. Get to know your college's policies and have you read the student handbook? Have you read the college catalog? Have you read the faculty handbook? It's very interesting to see when those things don't line up. Know the people and the players. So the departments and offices at your college and what they do. This is the most important one. Know who knows how to do what you don't know or can't do. I'm blessed in my current position because I have an administrative assistant who knows everybody at the college. And I can go to her and say, I don't know how to do this. And she'll say, I don't either, but I know who to call, you know? And so knowing those folks. There are none so lowly. Get to know everybody at your college. Know the person who cleans the building during the day and know the person who cleans the building at night. They will be going through your trash can. They can also help you in They can help you in many ways. I wasn't on campus very long, and I noticed that we had these chairs in the hallway, and they were grungy, they were filthy. And I had struck up a friendship with the housekeeping staff, and I came back from vacation one day, and all of them had been steam cleaned. And we didn't have to go through any policy and procedure. It was based on that relationship. So get to know everyone. Even if you don't think you have a connection with them, you do, because you're all mission focused, and everybody at that institution is part of that mission. Sometimes networking gets a bad rap. You know, it's favor-seeking, or you feel it. For me, networking is about learning. The more people that you know, the more that you learn, their experiences and their perspectives. It makes you a better professional. So let's talk about experience. One way I want to talk about that is by, I'm going to update the slide here. One way I want to talk about that is you're coming in as a subject matter expert, you know your discipline. So when you join the college, you're trying to get broad experience, right? So where's financial aid office? How do I file never attended forms? Who's the president? You know, you're getting that broad experience. Once you get that, then go deep. Get involved in something and get to know it well. Become your college's expert on it, because that knowledge is connected to other knowledge, and it'll make you, it also breeds confidence, and then you become a point person for that. When you go deep, after you've gone deep, then you need to go broad again. So I'm an expert on the honors program. How does this connect to the budget? How does this connect to student success? How does this connect to performance-based funding? Get experience at the college and state levels. So you can see that I'm serving on the committee for New Horizons. I've been doing it for years. It's a great experience at the state level. Look for those initiatives where you can participate. Let your dean know. Let your vice president know, hey, if there's something available at the state level, I'd like to be involved in that. Same thing at the college. Get involved in committees. Run to, not away from, special assignments. So when something's going on, particularly if you have an interest in it, say, I'll do that. If you're not comfortable being in the lead position, that's okay. You can say, look, I'd like to help with that initiative. I don't want to lead it because I don't feel prepared for that, but I'd really like to be part of that. Look for opportunities for service. It is something that we do. It's who we are in a community college. And I added this one last night, I think about 11 o'clock, Amy. I forgot that for most decanal positions at many of the colleges, the doctorate is the expectation, and that may have changed. Now, it's not necessarily the case in the technical fields. And I am going to now pass it over to Tony.
Good afternoon. All right, I'm going to talk about how to lead from your current position. A good quote here says that great leaders don't set out to be a leader, but they are set out to make a difference. It's never about the role, but it's always about the goal. And one of my favorite quotes I found when I was doing this said, a new dean is like learning how to ice skate for the first time in front of all of your friends. And so you know how that goes. You may slip, you may fall, and they're going to laugh at you, but you'll get back up, and eventually you'll learn. But being a new dean, or just learning how to lead from your current position, rather, one of the things you have to do, you have to make connections. You have to make connections with your colleagues beyond your department. Find ways to collaborate with others on your college campus, and not just in your department. One of the things I like to say is see beyond the horizon. You ever been on the beach and you look over, you're looking across the water, across the horizon, and you see beyond, you want to see beyond the horizon, and beyond the horizon you think there's more out there than just you, and so that's sort of a good analogy. There's more out there than just your department. So learn to work across silos. Be a visionary. Be one who understands that you don't just operate in a closed system, but that your department operates in an office, but your office department also operates in a much larger campus, and the campus operates within the community. So you see how it all flows together. And then the next one is prepare. Make sure you, as Patrick said, find opportunities to serve. Don't wait to take on more responsibilities. Go above and beyond at your current position. A good way to develop your skills is to take on extra projects outside of your faculty position. Remember, the more work you do, the more you're learning. As you're learning more and you're taking on more responsibilities, that can help move you into a leadership role on your campus. Try adding new responsibilities to your job, or restructuring it. It's more doable than you think. Consider moving a responsibility from someone else's plate to your own. You're thinking, really? Trade tasks with a colleague, or take on a role or a task that needs to be done that no one currently owns. So those are some ways that you can add on new responsibilities, and also try re-examining responsibilities that are already part of your job, but receives little attention. And then the next thing in prepare is taking the initiative. Look outside of your job description or department for projects, or for task forces, for those one-time events or activities that you can participate in for a short period of time. And you're saying, who has the time for all of this? But if your goal is to grow as a leader, you have to participate. So while you're in your current job, participate. You need to temporarily make the time for more, to take on more. Then the next piece of advice is to be a team player. So simply having a positive attitude can have a huge effect on morale. Do you believe that?
Yes.
And why I say that is, just consider how that one negative person, they say one bad apple can spoil the entire bunch. So just think about how that one person with that negative attitude can basically spoil the entire department or the entire team or whatever project that you're working on. So demonstrate enthusiasm. Be optimistic. It's contagious. People will take on your demeanor. Refrain from complaining. Even though you want to complain, refrain from it. Go in your office and vent to yourself. You can talk to yourself, just don't talk back to yourself. And above all, avoid office or campus gossip. The quickest way to become an ineffective leader is to be known as a campus or an office gossiper. And so these might just seem like simplistic instructions, but basically they are good instructions to becoming a good leader. And also I want to just remind you to inspire others. Learn to inspire. Allow others to shine. Leadership often means making others look good. It's not all about you looking good or you taking the credit, but it's about allowing others to shine in the midst of the team project. This could be recognizing other people's talents, making good use of them, sharing the credit for successes, being inclusive of those quiet people or those people who are often overlooked. Make sure you're being inclusive of them. Give compliments freely. And offer constructive criticism in a kind way when it would benefit that other person. The next one is representation. Be a liaison. Find ways to represent your college in the local community, whether it's on local community agency boards, whether it's on boards of community businesses. Be a liaison in the community. There are many opportunities to learn lessons of leadership through your personal experiences as well. Think about the nonprofit organizations in your community, religious, social or professional organizations, as well as schools, your children's schools, team sports. We all, like to participate, our children like to participate on team sports, and as well as, believe it or not, areas of your family life. All of those things can help grow you personally as a leader. And then last but not least is to be reflective. You have to conduct a self-assessment basically on your own leadership skills. Take time to ask for feedback. Ask others, how do they see you as a leader? And then be open to the constructive criticism. Also think about mentorships. It's important to ask for help, ask for advice, ask someone to coach you or mentor you. And then the last, I want to say, maintain your professional growth. You have to be willing to master new competencies. You can't just stay inside of your box, but you have to be willing to go outside of your box. Not just setting yourself on your natural capabilities, but become well-rounded. Develop a repertoire of skills. Also gain insights from your experiences, from your personal experiences, or from your job experiences, your day-to-day responsibilities. Gain insights from those and apply that new knowledge and skills to the next experience that may come along. Be willing to step into unfamiliar territory. Be willing to be innovative. Be willing to be creative. Be willing to put yourself out there, even though you may feel like you're failing, but know if a failure is always another step, it's just another step to success. So be willing to do that. Leave your comfort zone. Be willing to broaden your capacity and step into those new situations so you're testing other abilities that you have. And a lot of times we want to stay in the same box, but that leads to stagnation. And so if you want to grow, you have to be willing to step outside of your comfort zone. And then the last thing is understand your own motivation. Know your why. Why? Why are you willing to move into administration? As faculty, hey, office hours, teaching versus 60, 70 hours a week, know your why. It just can't be about moving up in your career. It can't just be about money, but it has to be about student success. Are we doing this because we want students to succeed and we want to make a difference in the lives of our students? So, awesome. Next is Johanna.
Since everybody is still here, that must mean we haven't scared you off. And now I'm going to give you some advice on how to actually get a position in administration. So it's interesting, Amy chose the quote, "But I am from Florida," so Walt Disney is an appropriate a reference here. So it is courageous. It's putting yourself out there. It's taking risks. It's applying for jobs that you don't get or that you don't even ever hear from. And so I want to talk a little bit about how the first steps towards putting yourself out there, and then of course if you get an interview, what are some advice for how you move through that process, because it's, as much as we think it's this big black box, there are some things that you can certainly do to position yourself better. And so the first thing is there's a lot of sites out there to find a job. There's the Chronicle of Higher Education, there's Higher Ed Jobs, I use Indeed a lot because they pull from lots of different resources and you can get alerts for a lot of these things. There's a job site in Virginia. So even if this is 3 years off, more years off, it's a good idea to kind of keep your eyes open. What's out there? These are not jobs that come available all the time, especially if you have limited geographic mobility. So keeping your eye open, getting these alerts, I think is a great thing. And to also start to look and see, am I even qualified for jobs? Because sometimes jobs require credentials you might not have, or maybe you have 5 years of experience, but they say you need 10 years. So it's good to start to get a feel for what are people looking for out there. So once you find a job, there's a process, and then there's several kind of pieces that you got to go through. Make sure that you look and see what are they looking for? What are the requirements? Do you meet those requirements? We've all been on search committees where you get these people, and we searched for an associate dean position where you got people who came in with like high school diplomas, and you're like, okay, you can tell, and this is one of my messages, you can tell when someone's blanketly applying to every single thing under the sun. And do we really want to hire those folks? No, we want to find people who have the credentials and who meet the requirements and who also want to be at our institutions, right? So making sure that you know what they require, what are they looking for? A lot of times they'll say minimum and then desired. Can you check off those marks? When the deadline is. I know this sounds crazy, but we've had positions where the deadline is at 5 and they thought it was at midnight and they just missed the deadline, and then it's done. So it's little things like that, kind of looking at what they're looking for, because when it comes down to screening that whole pool of people that applies, go back to the ad, right? That's what you're being scored on. If it says they want someone who has supervisor experience with faculty, okay, that's something you got to make sure you emphasize. So there's several pieces. There's the application, which regardless of whether you're submitting a CV or not, you've got to fill out the state application, right? You can't just say CCV, because they'll throw you out in a lot of these state jobs, right? Yep. And the importance of a cover letter. If you just say see resume or see attached, that's the cover letter is the most critical piece of the whole thing. And I see some people nodding their head, right? Because that's where you sell yourself. I mean, your CV, yes, you need to put all your experience. And also, I caution you, too, a lot of times I get a lot of colleagues who ask for my advice on their CV and their cover letter. Make sure that in your cover letter and everything you submit that you emphasize your experience that relates to administration. Like, yes, you did this in the classroom, you did this, but like they're looking for an administrator. So it's not that you have to have been one, but emphasize those experiences that directly translate. Don't talk about how you want to do research. And we've all seen that in faculty. Okay, we're not Duke, so that's not a good fit. Don't make it seem like you're casting your net wide. If I'm living in Virginia and I'm applying to a job in Kansas and Illinois, we all want people to come to our institutions who want to be there, right? They want to come to, I'm at John Tyler, or they want to come to John Tyler. So that's the question, I think, why do you want this job? Why do you want to come to that institution? I think those are the things to think about, and be very deliberate when you write. You don't want to just send the same cover letter everywhere. Make sure you customize it for the job. If it's a dean, or it's a director, or it's student affairs, go back to the ad. I always look at the ad and I go, okay, this is what they want. Doggone it, my cover letter is going to address that, and that, and that, because that's, again, a lot of times they score applications based on the ad itself. So it is always, there'll be an ad, they've got to have experience with technology. We may know you probably have technology experience, but if you haven't mentioned it somewhere, it's a little bit of an equation here that you need to make sure that you put yourself forward in a way that matches what they're looking for. Make sure you proofread. I'm at John Tyler, and if somebody comes in and they've applied to J. Sargent Reynolds Community College, you kind of go, okay. Not that I don't love my Reynolds folks, my Reynolds peeps out there, but make sure you proofread. If you're going to use the same cover letter or some iteration, make sure that you adjust it for the jobs that you are applying for. Some other things, usually they ask you to do the application, submit a resume or CV, do transcripts, unofficial transcripts. Make sure you also have your official transcripts available, because sometimes these processes go quickly. And if anybody's ever had to request official transcripts, that sometimes can take a while. So make sure I have at my house, I might have requested them 5 years ago, but I've got my sealed official transcripts that prove, I have the credentials. You've got to submit your references, and make sure you choose these people very deliberately. Make sure that you include supervisors. If you see folks who are friends and coworkers, they're going to want to talk to a supervisor. And the smartest thing to do is to make sure that your supervisors know what you're doing, right? Because this is one of my little pet peeves, is like when somebody calls me for a reference of someone I had no idea was looking for another job, I go, oh. Okay, because the best thing you can do is, and most leaders want to do this, they want to foster the people who are with them. I want people to be happy and healthy and to get to where they want to go. And my mentors want the same thing. And so when I started looking for positions before, I tell them I'm going to put myself out there. Are you okay with being a reference? I make sure that they're in the loop so that they can support me, but they also are not blindsided by being asked to be a reference. So make sure you build those relationships along the way with your supervisors and the folks that you want to have as references. during the interview, once you get an interview, make sure you do your homework. You know everything you can about it's kind of like writing a paper, right? Go to the website, read the strategic plan, get the buzzwords, get the initiatives, think about questions that you want to ask that are relevant to the position. Also, this is not, we always get nervous for interviews, right? This is not going to be a trick set of questions. I can tell you right now, and this is what I did when I got my first dean position, well, my only dean position, my dean position is I Googled dean questions, on the internet, right? And I got lots of things. And it's stuff that you already know. Like, they're going to ask you, what's your strengths? What's your weakness? What's your biggest mistake? How do people describe you? What's your leadership style? Where do you want to go in life? Somebody asked me once, what do you do for fun? That's a trick question. I don't know. But, you're going to, 75% of questions I've ever gotten at interviews, I knew they were going to ask me that. And so you can practice. I used to write it out, write out all the questions I thought they could ask, write out all my answers, practice with people, and really get prepared. And once you feel that confidence, like, okay, you know what they're going to ask you. They're going to ask you about managing people. A student comes to you and complains. You've got to have all those things so that it's not that awkward, okay, let me think. Think about it ahead of time. I think that that's the best preparation. And like I said, most questions you can anticipate ahead of time. At the interview, make sure you dress in a professional manner. Make sure you dress in a way that's not going to, be a memorable experience in a bad way. We were talking about this ahead of time, somebody wasn't wearing a dress and they thought they should. You can't control all of that craziness, but make sure that you think about very deliberately about what you're going to wear for that day. Make sure you answer. My philosophy is that I always put myself out there in interviews. I'm authentic. I tell people who I am and what I want, because I feel like these positions are a lot of times about fit. And if I put myself out there and they don't like it, then that's probably not a great fit. But do stay on topic and do not talk too long, because I'm sure there's a big schedule that everybody is working on. Ask a few questions to the committee, but don't ask the things like, how much money am I going to make? Can I work from home? When are you going to let me know? Because we all know how slow HR works. Am I wrong? Anybody have? Maybe I'm wrong, but it always takes longer. And so that's the most common question is, well, when are you going to let me know? Well, when I can, when we get through this process. But do ask some thoughtful questions, because I think that shows that about that institution, because it shows them that you've done your work, and that always be prepared to answer the question why they should hire you and why you want to be there. Those are the two things, right? And you got to have answers to those that makes sense. Shake hands with everybody. Don't ever underestimate the value of a handwritten thank you note, because that has come up before. Well, they sent a thank you note. It's a big deal. And then also keep in mind, sometimes when you go on interviews, they have you meet with people, they go on tours. All those interactions are important. They all lead to that conversation at the end about who do they want to hire, who's the best fit for the position. Okay. A few more reminders, and then we're going to have a couple minutes for questions. If you're an internal candidate, you've got to assume that people do not know anything about you. This is we've all probably seen this, where folks go, hey, you know me, I don't need to sell myself. This is about selling yourself, right? Even if you're internal, make sure that you put your best foot forward, that you don't assume anything. Also, administrative positions are about the right fit at the right time at the right place. And so a lot of times it all depends on who's in the application pool. There are some jobs that you're going to rise to the top, and there are some that it's going to be very competitive. There are some where there's two or three candidates, they're all great. Then who's the best fit? Who's the right fit at this time? And it's hard not to take it personally, because we all would, but it's really, I'm a strong believer in that things work out the way that they should. But you got to put yourself out there, and you got to be smart about how you go about it. And also make sure you're very deliberate about the jobs you apply to. I already talked about tailoring it towards the position and institution, but don't apply for jobs that you would never take. Right? If I'm never going to move to Idaho with my family, then I'm not going to go try to be a finalist for a vice president position there, because that's a waste of everybody's time. But don't just do it for the experience. Do it because you really are, you would consider that position. And then the last thing is questions from you guys. And I don't know how we're going to work with this with the mic.
Hi, guys. Thank you, Amy, Patrick, Tony, and Johanna. Just a quick question about internal candidates, positions I found myself in before. How do you step out of the shadow of being a great faculty member? When they say, but you're so great in the classroom, and if you step out of that position, I'm not quite sure who will fill your shoes. So,
Yeah, I don't want to just be the default
I
answer.
want to go back to something that Johanna said, and that organization hopefully is committed to talent development, right? That's what we do. That's our business, and so they should be happy when an excellent faculty member says, you know, I think I'm ready for this next step, and then it's incumbent upon that school to go and find an excellent faculty member to fill that position. You know, that's their job.
Or also help foster your peers so that they, you know, can step into some of the roles that you might have played. You know, don't be a department of one where you're doing everything. My expression I use frequently is share the love. Like, make sure that everybody's got, you know, something. So, but great. I mean, the chancellor said it, and I agree with this. Great faculty make great administrators. And I think, I mean, I've won award for teaching. We've all gotten recognized, and it's great to be a great faculty. And a lot of it, as Amy said, translates directly. And so it's really about just changing your audience a little bit.
Just to follow up on that question, since I have the mic, do you find that I've heard you've got to move out to move up. I've heard that a lot of times in a lot of situations. So do you think that's really true then? I mean, it's sort of related to this very same question.
I think we're split, right? 2 of us were internal and 2 of us moved. So, Amy, you want to speak to the internal?
Well, I mean, I guess if I were going to move up, I probably would have to say I would have to move, right? So I would move, but I was hired from within, so I was an internal candidate, and so is that what the question was? Sorry, yes.
I don't think,
I don't think that you have to move out.
Not
to
for the
move
dean
up,
position,
right?
I don't think. I mean, there are more and more institutions are hiring from within. I mean, dean is a hard position to do, and a lot of times people don't stay. And so a lot of institutions have found that the better strategy is to foster the talent within.
Right.
I think that's a really good point about the dean being a little different that way as opposed to a vice president or a president. A lot of times they're going to come in from the outside. But it also depends on where that institution is. If they've done a lot of hiring from within, they may make a conscious decision, you know, we need to bring somebody in from the outside just to bring in some new ideas. Or conversely, if they've done a lot of hiring from outside, they may recognize we need some internal stability, and so let's groom one of our own for this position. Also, deans tend to leave without a whole lot of notice. Certainly not enough notice for HR
Don't
to
do that.
Well, you know, but it takes a long time, and so administrations often will turn to a faculty member to serve as an interim, and often that'll be somebody they have faith in.
There's a question in the back. We need a mic. Okay, you got the mic.
Hi.
Right.
Just a question. 2 of you are internal, right? Your faculty members, you become deans. Could you talk a little bit about that change? Because I know you cultivate close friendships with teaching faculty, but then becoming a dean, you have to kind of separate yourself a bit.
Tony, you want to talk about that?
Sure, I can talk about that. It's not as difficult as it may seem. If you have good relationships in the beginning with your colleagues, so when you move up, a lot of times they appreciate or applaud you for moving up because, one, they know you to be trustworthy. They know that you are honest, that you're fair. And so if you make yourself known as someone that they can trust from the beginning, as I think I said in my presentation, don't be known as that office or campus gossiper or the person that everybody wants to come and talk to and complain to. So if you're known as that positive, humble person that they can, trust, then I think it's not as difficult as it seems. Yeah.
Mine was very similar to that. It almost answered it to a T, except the evaluation piece. You're now evaluating your former peers. Any tips, tricks, how do you handle that?
Follow policy to a T.
And again, it's my favorite part.
Mine as well.
And they were my friends.
Yeah.
And I think this is because I was not internal, but it's still are hard conversations to have regardless. I think the thing is that, and I've heard this at many of these leadership things, is like, what is the right thing for the students? Like, you know, in all of our positions, it's never about ego or title or money. It's about doing what's right for the students. And I always let that drive my decisions and my interactions with faculty. You know, and I don't look at it punitively. Like, if your student evaluations are low, then how do I help support you, and how do we help fix that? You know, I always try to, with faculty, you know, I'm on their side. I want to help them. I want to foster great teaching. We're all here for the same reason. And I think if you let that drive the conversation, it becomes a more productive one.
Hi. We have a Leadership Institute at Thomas Nelson, and for 5 years we had a panel of deans come and talk to the faculty in the Institute about what made them become deans. And every one of them said they never wanted the job in the beginning, but opportunity came, what they fell in love with, and why they kept doing it. And they all came up with something you all haven't said. So I kind of like to ask you, once you got into it, what did you fall in love with that you didn't expect to find? Or what did you find that you loved doing that just hooked you? I'll tell you what they said. They said it was growing people, like they loved being a faculty member because they changed lives. And they loved being a dean.
And that I think was kind of where my piece of it stemmed from, that I loved being in the classroom in the beginning of the semester and seeing those faces be so scared, and then by the end seeing how well they were doing.
So it's kind of like being a dean, the scared faces?
Yeah. Well, I just I like to bring people along, and I feel like faculty members are people that I would like to bring along.
They become kind of your students like that.
Yeah.
Our job is to support them.
And the job of coaching and mentoring and finding and recruiting came out clear. Every one of them said they never expected how much they would love the job of coaching and mentoring faculty.
Yes.
That is true. See that too?
Yes, I did not think that would be the case. I thought that I would be going to meetings and doing projects, and you are interacting with people all the time, trying to figure out what motivates people. People are motivated by different things, what people's strengths are.
It's a lot of psychology.
Yeah, you can't force people. I mean, certainly you could force people to do things that they're not good at and that they don't like, but why not just work with their strengths and find someone else who likes that kind of work to do that. So it's kind of a puzzle, I guess, but it's a lot of fun and a lot of hard work.
Thank you. Hi, I just have a quick question about your interview process that you all went through when you were on your interview to become a dean. You know how for teaching faculty, during the interview process, the teaching faculty are asked to give a presentation on a certain topic, and all the candidates usually are given the same topic. I guess for me, as a teaching faculty, I'm really intimidated as to what kind of question, if I ever applied for a dean position, they would ask me to present or what topic they would ask me to present on. And I was wondering if one of you were able to share with us what your topic was during your interview that you spoke about.
So at Thomas Nelson, when I interviewed there, the topic was how are you going to take the communications, humanities, social science division to the next level? What's your vision for the division? Which is a really tough question, because you don't know that division. You know, you look at them on the web, you've got the numbers, but you don't really know the history and what their culture is. So, but usually, in my experience, those topics are, when they give you the topic, it tells you a lot about the institution. You say, oh, that's what they're thinking about. That's what's important to them there. And then you want to do a lot of research on that.
I know we're doing one now for an associate dean, and it's going to be something, I think, related to, how in your position as associate dean would you help the institution triple credentials in areas related to your division so. Well, it's all about student success. I mean, those are the conversations, and that's what I think my guess would be is the kind of questions. How are you going to get students to be successful? How are you going to how are you going to help the institution meet these complete 2021? So, are we out of time? Okay. I want to thank
Thank you.
everybody, and I speak for all of us when saying that we're here to help you. So please don't let the conversation end. We're happy to talk to you now and in the future. We want to help you be successful, and thank you for coming.